Welcome to Why We Work with your host, Brian V, as he speaks to people like you from all over the world, as we together dive deeper into our motivations, struggles, joys, seemingly missteps, hopes, warnings, and advice, which will be an encouragement to us all to get up, get going, and keep on working. Working is tough, but working is good. Now here is your host to Why We Work, Brian V. This is Brian V at Why We Work, and I have the extreme pleasure of speaking to you today with my aunt, Linda Sidor.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't know if I was going to say Mrs. Sidor, but I'll throw that out. Linda, thank you very much for speaking with me today. And I appreciate you taking the time a moment ago to speak with my dear wife. I know she appreciates that. She adores you immensely. And I thank Bill for allowing me to take some time from you this morning.
I thank you very much, Brian. This is an absolute pleasure and a privilege. I assure you, it's so good to see you. And I just love your family, and your wife is very, very dear to my heart.
I'm going to have to ask you that same question at the end. You may not think it is that big of a pleasure, but I do appreciate it. And I do want to talk about work. And yes, you are my aunt, but I want to, maybe some people will listen to this and want to know a little bit about you in terms of work, thinking years back, not necessarily now what you're doing. So as far back as you would like to reminisce of your thoughts on work, even before you started working. Maybe you've seen someone in your life that was a good worker or a poor worker, and you said, I want to, or I don't want to be like that person.
No, I think as far as work, it was just a natural thing. My mother was a hard worker. My father was a hard worker. And it was just a way of life. That's all that was to it. I never had seen or witnessed anybody who took life for granted, that you didn't have to work for everything and anything you had. When I was very young, maybe 11, I started babysitting in the neighborhood, and I had a lot of experience already because I had two younger brothers, one of whom you probably know very well. And you can well imagine he was not a gentle person to work with, and no older sister was ever going to tell him what to do. And of course, my mom would come in and say, where are the boys? Is this right? Is that right? Like, so now I'm responsible. So at a young age, I could go out in the neighborhood and work, right?
And
so then go ahead.
I can attest to that. And that's not even against my dad, obviously.
No.
But my daughter is the same, the older sister, and looking after my son, Benjamin, and she has that responsibility. And now at the moment, she's so willing to look after her nephew is here.
Exactly.
And she can go and do that because she has that tender heart, motherly instinct about her because she had that responsibility growing up.
That's exactly true. And the thing is, looking after her nephews is a whole lot easier than looking after her little brother. I guarantee it.
Not referring to anyone in particular, but just that's how it goes.
Yes.
So what was your reasoning for my dear wife is here. She's writing. So as I mentioned to you about our purchase today, she's reminding me to call someone. So that's okay. What was the reasoning for wanting to get that babysitting job besides having
because
the ability
it showed
to do it?
I was responsible. It gave me confidence in things I was doing. I did not have confidence. I had a really rough time trying to get confidence in everything and anything I did from a very early age. And my daughter also had those same issues, not very confident about anything you do. You're always not good at it. It can't help it. But also I did know that my parents didn't have money to give me or to do everything you did, you had to find the money yourself. You had to find a way to do it. So when I started high school, it's like 4 miles away, but for me to catch the bus to and from school, I had to pass Galley's shoe store. So I asked them for a job and got it. So all during high school, I worked for Galley's shoe store, which gave me money for milkshakes, for going to the school dances, things like that. So you learn, it helps, if you, and people get to know you that way too.
So when you said you were trying to show, was it show confidence or show ability?
Yes.
Is it
Yeah.
to prove to yourself, or was it to show my grandmother and grandfather, or your mom and dad? Was it
No, myself.
to yourself?
Mm-hmm.
And were you at that age able to see growth in yourself and the confidence, or did it take time?
No, it always takes time, because you have to be successful, or it's that praise. You're going after the praise, which then confirms that, yes, you were right. Yes, you have confidence. That builds your confidence in what you're doing and how you're learning that. But the other thing is that this works for that child, but it certainly doesn't work for the other child, right? So you have to figure out a way. So that try doing that and making it happen gives you the confidence that I know what I'm doing. That's amazing. I know what I'm doing here.
So what did you venture into after high school?
Well, my dad, being female, dad says there's only nursing and teaching. There's no other thing to do. And I wanted to do business.
What did you want to do? What did you want to do in business at the time?
I just wanted to go to business college.
Okay.
I wanted to learn as much as I could, but my father would have no part of it. So I went into nursing, which nobody had to tell me I was going to hate this. I knew I was not going to be a good nurse. But I did it for a very, very short time. And I found out, no, this is definitely not for me. So I went back home. I was in Montreal at the time. And I went back to Cape Breton, and I got a job with Woolco in retail.
Yeah.
And from there, I got back. I was living in Glace Bay. So this is 20, 30 miles away from home. Mm-hmm. So then I got a job at Kroll's in retail and had my own little jewelry department. That was kind of nice.
So sorry to interrupt. Did you go to college to be a nurse, or what they had at the time, or what was required?
At that time, you went into nursing training, where it was part schooling and then practical.
Okay.
Within hospitals. And there were two nurses training schools within Cape Breton at the time, but I needed as a teenager to get out. And so I went to Montreal.
I have a question that I'm not asking just because you're my aunt and that's my grandfather, but you mentioned, it was expected to be this or that, but not something that you actually wanted. When you decided not to be a nurse, because I hear this a lot with some of the, say, podcasts or other people that I listen to, and people are doing things that they don't want to do, especially when they're younger, and they want to respect their parents, but they also don't want to do whatever they're being turned towards. So how was that little bit of a transition there from I'm not doing this, and then you jumped into some other things? How strenuous was that on the relationship, or did?
Well, I don't know if it was I think it was disappointing. I think he was disappointed for sure, because probably like all parents, the parent you become has a little bit of your parent, because that's where your parenting came from. A little bit of that, and it's either good or bad. You either say, I'm not going to do things the way my parent did. I'm absolutely going to do things the way a parent is, or I'm going to pick and choose between them.
Yeah.
So that's when we were raising a child. There was no way that we would even suggest. We talked to Courtney about what she was doing or what she wanted to do, and then we supported whatever that was. And if she changed, she had reasons for that. She knows her better than anybody. So since I wasn't allowed to do that, there was no way I was going close to saying, well, you should do this, and I'd be proud if you did this. That's not my life. It's her life. So
So,
when it happened with me and I came
mm,
home, the other thing is that they didn't know is somebody tried to kill me in Montreal. And that had me terrified of the city. So it wasn't easy for me to even live there then.
so
I
this
couldn't
was,
go
you
to
were
the
being a
store.
nurse, you were in Montreal practicing nursing, and then
Hmm.
this occurred, and then you went.
Downtown. It wasn't at the hospital. This was in town.
Yes.
And but it made me very nervous to go out at
Yeah.
all. And when the hour changed and daylight saving was gone and now we're dark at 4 o'clock, that was it for me. I couldn't go out. I was terrified. And so it just got worse and worse. So by Christmas, I had to come home and stay home because I couldn't go. My parents didn't know about that.
But you want
I
to go home. I mean, that's the
Yes,
good thing. You wanted to come
yes,
home, but they didn't
yes.
know why. So
No,
it would.
no. So now my father's disappointed because I was quitting. You know,
How
I was
could you?
just
How dare
quitting.
you? I'm like, well, Dad.
So then he said, well, you're going to have to pay rent, board, you're going to have to do things, which I did. I got a good job at Wilco, which sounds really crazy to say in that kind of a department store to have a good job, but I did.
Yeah.
I paid my board, I bought a car, I paid for a lot of my wedding, I paid for schooling to go back to school to go to business college.
So you did go back to business college.
Oh, of course I did.
Do you recall like saying, Dad, I did what you asked me to do, and now I'm going to go into business college?
Well, I
What
didn't
was his?
say it. I didn't say it. I just did it. And then
They call
he
it,
he
Linda, where are
I was
you? I'm in
I
school.
was like I was still working. I
Yeah.
still had to work.
Hmm.
So I was still working. He knew I was working and I
Doing
was
business on the
busy.
side. Yeah.
Yeah. And so since I was so busy and he had a grocery store, right? So he was very busy and I would help out with some of the things he was doing at the same time.
So sorry,
So,
I want to get into this just a little bit. Not specifically to you, but maybe advice for people who would be in a similar situation, because I think it runs through time, right?
mhm,
Parents have this expectation for their children.
yes,
Kids don't have the same expectations. They want to do this or versus that. And you seemed not to hide it, but just to continue your own thing and let things play out. Do
yes.
you think that you were consciously not being rude or disrespectful, but you just said, okay, I'm going to do this and I'm not going to rub it in their face, and I'm just going to do this and see how it plays out? Did you consciously do that? Or
Well,
what was your maybe
I
thinking during that?
consciously did not put myself in a place where there would be confrontation. So if he asked me or said, I was talking to somebody and they were telling me you were doing this. Oh, yes, I was. Well, if it didn't work, I didn't want to tell you because then you'd be disappointed. So yeah, that's what I'm
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah.
So so it protected all the way around, you know.
And I think you'd find kids nowadays that would maybe, and all of us, I guess, do to a degree, is become confrontational. So like, I'm going to do this no matter what. And it
Hmm.
seems like what you're saying is maybe that's not the best strategy.
Well, and I was frightened of my dad.
Yeah.
Like, I really was. I was frightened of them. And like he was the man. You speak when you're spoken to. You don't say unnecessary things. You shut up. So
So how did school go? How did you find that experience
I
versus
loved it.
taking the nursing, which you probably
Oh, I loved it. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I loved shorthand. I would be listening to the radio, and if there's people around, I'm still trying to listen to what the radio's saying and copy shorthand at the same time. It was like another language. It was just fun to do. And I could not believe from there, once I graduated, I felt like I finally got an adult job. And
Mhm.
I was 21, 22, I guess. And I got a job with Air Saint Pierre, going to French owned properties, the only ones in North America. I was a flight attendant, ticket agent, secretary, everything to do with it. It was so fantastic. And I met a lot of people. I traveled a lot. I got to know an awful lot about airplanes, things that I had no way of knowing any other way. And after being there and that's when I started speaking French. And so when I was then purchased away or enticed away with a salary that I really wasn't getting much of, but the job was it, right? And to Eastern Flying Service.
An offer
and
you couldn't
there,
refuse.
when it was there with Eastern Flying Service, I did everything. It was from accounts payable to receivable to balance sheets, and then learning about franchisees and aviation. I got my pilot's license there. There was nothing, doing contracts, payables, receivables, like everything.
So,
and I loved it.
Did you have any, because your life even now is surrounded by flight, right? And it's your husband and your life.
And our daughter.
And your daughter. Did you have that desire because you wanted to get into business, but was there some sort of inkling towards it, or you just want to get the business? That's all you could see at that time, and then you just fell into it?
I thought in the beginning, when I was interested in business, it was more like banking. I was more interested in banking and the business behind banking, not so much the exchange of monies, but the paperwork, the accounting. I really liked accounting. Crazy, I know, but I did. And so that's where my head was going, but I was out of work, and my dad had a very, very good friend who worked at the airport, and he heard that Air St. Pierre was looking for somebody. So I applied and got it. And after that, like I always feel that in life, your choices are color, that it's almost like you're led into something. Like it's almost like you're led there, and that your choice is what color, because there will be two veins, pick one. And then your life goes on from there. But even it goes so far, there's another choice. And that's what leads you down the road. So you really don't have a whole lot of choice in it.
And a lot of people spend their time worrying about getting to those choices or getting to that step, and that
they will come.
They'll come anyway. Can you say that? Can you say that again? Who said what about the airport being open or the position being open? Did you say your father, my grandfather?
Yes.
Eventually introduced you to the guy who would give you the job?
Well, that's true. That's absolutely true. And as a result, my dad and mom ended up getting some privileges as a result of all of
they
that.
didn't, and I know they didn't mind flying down to Florida. I mean, just in the end, he's like, "There's my girl."
Or out west, when we were living up in Fort McMurray, and we got them out west, and we had a private plane pick them up, and a private plane flew them back to Fort McMurray, and then we went to a fishing camp in the middle of a Saskatchewan lake, where it was just this house and every toy you can imagine and every fishing rod you could imagine, and a private plane dropped us off, and a private plane took it, came back and got us, and he bragged about that till the day he died. so no, he did well by it.
He was okay with your decision, and I think
but
that's
when he
great,
got sick,
right?
It would have been nice if I had been a nurse.
Well, yeah, a private room or something, but I think he was okay. So how long did you stay in the airline
with Eastern
industry?
Flying Service? I then, I guess I was becoming known in Canada because there weren't any females doing what I was doing. And I was doing everything to do with aviation, except for the mechanical work and avionics. Everything else, weight and balances, crewing, everything else I was doing. So I was then offered a job in Halifax for a brand new company starting up, which I took. And I was there for 4 years, but they were so disoriented. And then it was the next thing was one of my jobs of my life. It was just brilliant. It was IMP Aviation, which is 3-country company.
Mm-hmm.
And the president of that company, he had such faith in me, and he gave me more confidence than anybody ever, because he trusted that I knew what I was talking about. I stood my ground. I was responsible. I took responsibility when I made mistakes. Some of them were kind of expensive, but he was a support like you couldn't imagine. And there was nothing in that company I didn't do, from marketing, accounting, selling the company everywhere in Canada, fighting other companies that were trying to get in, tasking the government in court to do something about rules and regulations, changing some of the rules and regulations. I did a lot of work for that company. And I sold a jet, a really big corporate jet, or I hope to sell it, to a gentleman out west, a corporation out west. And I really wanted to make this sale because I needed this out of the company.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got my husband to take it out, because he's the best, smartest, sharpest pilot I'd ever known. And I knew a few pilots. He was the best, and still is. And so he flew it out, and he was so good. They bought the plane and him as well. So they offered him a job that was so over the top, he couldn't refuse it. On the same day that IMP offered me the general manager's position of IMP Aviation. So that was like, oh my gosh.
I have a side question. Do you think you were influenced on your brother to get into mechanics?
I don't think so. Well, Keith started hanging around at the airport at that time. Terry got his license because I was there.
Well, Terry,
and
yeah. So was he? You were.
I gave Terry that job.
Well,
yes.
There you go. So you were a big influence.
No he had no choice. I was desperate. The boss at Eastern Flying Service went away on vacation, and I was in charge. And then the guy on the ramp decided he knew more than I did. So then we had words. He didn't come the next day, and I called Terry and I said, do you want a job? So when my boss came back and he started screaming at me, you had no right to hire somebody. Who do you think you are? And I said, okay, you be here. You make sure that everybody's on the ramp and everybody's getting fueled. I'm going home, and I quit. So I left, and then the next morning he called me and he said, are you coming to work or what? So
did you say your daughter is also in aviation?
She was. She's now HR for Scotiabank.
Okay, and so she went the bank way.
Isn't that ironic? I never thought of that. Yeah. When she graduated from university, they offered to pay for her master's if she came back and taught history. And I didn't know this until her graduation day, and her professor.
This is out of her bachelor degree. They offered her to come back.
That's right.
They asked me just not to come back. I don't know. To teach history.
So we didn't know it. And then when this professor said this, it's like, what? And I looked at her, and she said, Mom, if I have to study for another year, I'm going to have a breakdown. I just can't do it. But don't worry, I have a job. You have a job? You have a job? I said, and she said, yes. She said, I got a job with WestJet as a flight attendant. Then I thought I was going to go right through the ceiling. You could have done that with grade 13. You didn't need 4 years.
Oh, no. She was just living a dream at the time.
So
Mom.
She did. She was living in Calgary, which was where she was born. So that was kind of cool. Mm-hmm. And she and her boyfriend saw the world on their days off. They went everywhere they wanted to go. And she did her post-grad while she was working. So
you were a major influence on your daughter and your brother.
No, I don't know about major influence. Just
directed them. You gave them opportunity. You gave them an opportunity.
Well, I was just shocked that she didn't take the more education, but she was right. She had to do it in her time, and I had to learn that. This people have to do things in their time, and so that's what we did. So when we went west,
Mm-hmm.
obviously I gave up my dream job and went west. But then I learned all sorts of things. I was living in Lethbridge first, and Bill was gone all the time, all the time, all the time. And I was living in a hotel. Sounds good. This was a glamour hotel. Everything, beds are made, places cleaned every day, and everything you ate has some kind of a wine sauce on it. It was horrible. And so we finally got a place to live. Beautiful condo, gorgeous, cars. I didn't know a soul. 4,000 miles before there's not one soul, anybody that I knew. So I decorated the condo, and the last thing was putting up these pictures. I made a gallery wall, putting up the last picture. Bill comes in, and I said, "Do you like this picture here?" And he said, "I need to talk to you." "No, I've been doing this all day. I like this picture here." So he backed me up with my shoulder, sat me down. I'm still holding the picture. And he says, "I've been transferred to Fort McMurray as general manager of Contact Airways." So I got up and said, "Do you like this picture here?" "I'm not going."
I'm staying with the picture.
So then I did. I went to Fort Mac, only because I left with the jet. The jet had to have an engine overhaul, and I left with that, and I went down to think what I'm doing. Before I left, my old boss, IMP, called up, and he said, "Linda, the last thing I'd ever want is anything to go wrong with your decision making and your jobs out there. But I was wondering if you would come back to Halifax." Oh my goodness. So I'm already in a turmoil, and then this offer is on the table. And he said, "If you do, I have a big surprise for you." But he wouldn't tell me what it was. So I left with the airplane, and Bill calls me while I'm sitting by the pool, and he said, "Listen, it's your decision. You have to do what you feel is best for you. And I'm not trying to get you to I'm not trying to put any pressure on you, but I just thought you should know that your brother Terry and his wife are coming up to Fort McMurray to work with me." "Okay, I'll come up." So I didn't go back east, and I went to up to Fort McMurray. So we were there for 3 years. Terry stayed for 35.
Yeah, he did.
And so we came back to Calgary, and I got a job, just a short-term job with Ken Boric Air, just doing like government work and getting their papers all in order and everything. And while I was there, I met a gentleman called Marsh Marassi, and he worked for Panarctic Oils, and he took my information and presented it to the corporation, and they hired me. So my entry job was administration, and I quickly changed that for transportation, oil and gas, air transportation, some engineering, and just about everything else. And I was there for a long time, and it was really interesting that and then Bill, of course, he decides to go Airline, which was back east again. I'm still in Calgary. So, and I had a little baby at that time. So, but I handed in my resignation, and my boss tore it up and threw it in the garbage and said, "You're not going anywhere.
You're not leaving."
I've got his child. I really have to go." So a few months later, we went back. Then I'm out of work. Bill is working, and then there was big strike action and everything with IMP, and he was laid off, and we're out of work. So we opened a grocery business called Grocery Connection.
Where was this?
Was brand new.
Where was this? Where did you
Halifax.
open? Oh, you opened a grocery store in Halifax.
Well, it was more like Dartmouth, Bill. Yeah. So it was on, what's the name of the road in there? Pardon? Burnside. We were in Burnside.
Okay. You've been going through this, and it seems like I'm thinking, what have I been doing with my life? But you go from what seemingly is a wonderful life to both not having a job.
Yeah. Oh,
How
many times.
how how difficult was that, and how did you get through it?
Well, okay, I'll explain. I said to my daughter one time, why don't you try this? And she said, Mom, children of risk takers are not risk takers. So
That's
I think that's what it is. It's a risk taker. You take it, it doesn't work, you keep going. I think for my personality is that if there's something I'd like to try, I can't shy away from it
Mhm.
because I don't want to spend 1 second of my life regretting what I didn't do. Maybe it would have been the worst thing in the world, but I don't know because I didn't try. So
That's
if
great.
I
It's great
try and
advice.
fail, I can go on from there. I don't have any regrets because
Yeah,
no, it wasn't for me. That's all. Like nursing, it wasn't for me.
yeah. That's
So
great advice.
you just go forward from there because you have one life.
So
One life on earth.
the two
I
of
don't know.
you the two of you were working side by side in the grocery store in Burnside, Nova Scotia.
Yes.
How did that go?
Well, not only that, then it was relatively a new concept because we bought a little Apple computer that was well over $10,000, tiny little bad, not nice computer, two of them,
Macintosh,
$10,000 a
that would
piece.
have been.
There goes my pension from Panarctic gone. And so we're down to nothing. So we had inventory, just rows and rows of
Yeah.
food inventory. And this business, nobody came in. You had
How
to
did
call in.
what made you think, okay, grocery store? How did you go
My
from
father was in the grocery business. I knew the grocery business, and this was a new concept because people would call in, give us our order. We're on headphones, taking the order down, fill the order, deliver to them, 35-mile radius, no charge for the delivery.
gas was cheap then?
Seniors nearly went crazy because they couldn't get groceries. There
Yeah.
were people in the winter who couldn't get out to get
Yeah.
groceries. Cabs would not take food up
Yeah.
to their
Yeah.
apartments or anything. They
Mhm.
would not. They'd leave them on the sidewalk
Mhm.
or stop, let you get out.
Mhm.
We had so many ladies, widowers, who couldn't get groceries, seriously couldn't get
Yeah.
groceries. So, and in fact, what happened, became so successful. We then had a gentleman who was cutting meat, had his own meat market, and he contacted us, and we were selling fresh meat. We just needed a day's notice. Still had 35-kilometer or miles in those
Mile
days,
radius. Yeah.
mile range. And so word got out. And so CTV wanted to do an expose on it, which they did. And also the big thing too that got everybody's attention, we had commercials that were like a soap opera. So the characters stayed the same in every commercial. And they could be a husband and wife in an argument about
Mhm.
something, or like, for example, the husband was out playing softball with his kids when he was, or with his friends when he was supposed to be home to get dinner ready because the wife had to stay late at work,
Mhm.
and he didn't, and you didn't get groceries. Yes, I did. I called Grocery Connection. They brought the food. It's there. It's all there. So, or coming home on a flight, we had the sound of airplanes and the airplane. And, oh my gosh, there's nothing in the house to eat. Yes, there is. Grocery Connection is going to meet us there when we get there. Things like this. And people knew there were 2 kids in this family, and a husband and wife, and they met their neighbors and things like that. So people were always waiting for the
For
next
the next
episode.
episode.
Yeah, it was really funny. So CTV did a
That would
whole
work.
expose.
That would work in 2020.
Well, of course it would, definitely. Actually, it did, right? That's exactly what they've been doing here. So we needed, when they were coming out, we needed to show we were bigger than we were. So we flew mom and dad up to work in the store.
Look at all the employees we have here.
And of course, they were coming and interviewing my mother Well, she knew the grocery business, right?
Yeah.
So she answered honestly. If you remember, Mom, she did not tell a lie, nor would she ever say a word that was a swear word, ever,
Mm-hmm.
ever, ever. She'd choke herself before she could get it out of her mouth, right? So she wouldn't lie. And she said, oh, yes, I know groceries, yes. And it's really nice talking to people. This is all true.
Yeah.
I love the customers, all true. So they were fantastic. They did such a great job that day. Now, what happened is a grocery business that shall not be named, but which is very famous here, got wind of it, and they had to put a stop to us. So they contacted all our suppliers and told them if they sold to us, they would not sell to them. And they had in excess of 400 stores, and we had one.
Sounds like what mobsters would do or something.
And they put us right out of business. We could buy nothing, absolutely
Put a
nothing.
stop to it.
Yeah. And one of the ladies that we were delivering to, they knew the people that, like, everybody was involved, everybody who invested in it. There were 4 people invested in it. And in the 4 people, they all delivered. They all knew each customer. It was fantastic. And there was one older lady called me, and she got me on the phone when she heard about it. And she said, tell me this isn't true. And she was crying. And she said, I have spent days, not a day, days with no food in the house and no means to get it because of storms and winter. And she said, and Mr. Al that's one of our guys who's also a pilot out of work. He's so nice, and he's nice to talk to, and he tells me about things that are going on. She said, I am not a poor lady. I've got money. If it's a money thing, I will give it to you to stay in business. I said, I'm so sorry, but I wish there was something I could do, but that's not the issue. The issue is we cannot buy product. So we had to close it.
There's
and
something
still owing for those 2 $10,000 computers.
Your pension's gone.
Pension gone. So from there, a gentleman from Northern Ontario, Bill, had the year before sent a proposal to the Canadian government about doing a service that connected all the Maritimes. I guess, yeah, it was just the Maritimes, not Atlantic at that point. And before he got to put it in the hands of the person he intended it for, the Canadian government put an ad in if anybody had a way of doing this. So he marked out pertinent information that was relating to the person he intended it for and sent it to the government. Bill never heard back from them. But this guy in the Northern Ontario contacted Bill, gave him that he was going to start a business. He wanted to make him president of this company. And by the way, what's your wife doing? I hear she's good at this as well. So we went to Sault Ste. Marie and talked to this gentleman. Bill had a couple of drinks. We'd been going since 4 a.m. He was looped. This guy was looped, and I'm not. So I'm listening to the conversations. And he said, you know where you made your mistake? You blacked out too much information. So no.
How did you know?
About that?
How would he know about that?
Right. So when I tried to tell Bill about it, he said, well, no, that's not possible. The government has it. It's private information. The government has it. It just so happened of this man and a certain senator, the guy got the information and gave it to him. So now we're working for the job that Bill, as it turned out, it's probably the best thing. The hard part was we did all the work for it. Mm-hmm. I did the hiring for flight attendants, ticket agents, service people. I set up the departments. I did all the marketing.
They stole your idea, then hired you to do it.
That's right. That's exactly what they did. Now that sounds like good business. So when it was all set up, they fired Bill and sold his position for $25,000, fired me, and sold my position for $15,000.
Once you did all the work.
Yes. Then they failed and left the area in debt. And Bill and I were the ones who secured all of this information. So that really hurt because that's my hometown. That's my turf, right? And they damaged our name, and that really bothered me. That was horrible. But with everything, there's always an up and down. When I was with IMP, one of the biggest accolades I could ever receive, the University of New Brunswick contacted me and asked me if I would be the guest speaker for the first graduating class with a transportation degree. I was overwhelmed. I could barely breathe, and so not deserving of this honor. So I told them that, and I gave them 3 names of who, and one of them is right there in your own territory. He's from
anyone else but me. Anyone else.
And yeah. And he said, well, the thing is, all 3 of those persons recommended that we should ask you. So that was 2 accolades. And now I can't even breathe. Because I am just, well, like I said in my response, but the good thing was I had a big battle going on in a boardroom with 8 people for millions of dollars of a contract on that date of the convocation. So I got out of it.
You got away out.
Also, I could handle the boardroom. I could handle the battle, no problem. But to stand in front of all those learned people, and I couldn't say a word. It would just shut me up crazy because I was not anywhere near them. So
well, listening to you and knowing you, I think you would have handled yourself just well.
In here, I know that's not true, but thank you very much. But it was just the fact that somebody thought that much. Right, that I knew what I was talking about, and I did. I knew, but I didn't have the confidence to put it forward. In a boardroom, I can handle it. I can handle anything. I think the main reason was, and this was the biggest negative of my entire employment anywhere, was that being a female in a male's world, I was working 10 times harder than anybody else, and mostly it was comments and put downs. I can handle that. All you did is just make me stronger and angry, so there's no way that I'm not getting money out of your pocket and putting it in ours. There's no way.
Okay, since you're challenging and putting down yourself to say you couldn't do it, which I think you could have done it, do you think it's more with all of your experience, you're best on your feet, on your toes, the active versus preparing a speech? Is it the speech or thinking? Is it that sort of environment, like to go teach a class where you have to sit down, prepare? Is it the jitters or something?
My gosh, Brian, the insight. I had not ever thought of that, but you're absolutely right. I also started, your grandfather, my father, died from prostate cancer. And I started an organization called the Princess Ball in support of Prostate Cancer Canada. And every year, I mean, we sold loads of tickets. It was a big, big event, big gala. Took from September to April to get it off the ground every year. And I would make speeches, and I'd get up, I'd read the first line and put it down and ad-lib the entire rest of the thing and go sit down. I could not ever follow it.
That's what you do best.
I can't. I'm nervous of that because now people can punch holes in it. If I'm just being me, if you punch hole, well, okay, it's my personality. I can't help it. Right?
Thinking too much of what you might have to say and preparing and thinking.
I got a phone. Hang on. It's 3 rings and it's gone, so don't worry about it.
So you may overanalyze what other people are thinking about you, and if you prepared well enough, and if you articulated it and you expressed it and you presented it, and rather than
Yes,
what we're doing here, which you're doing perfectly
exactly.
well, and being in a boardroom where you're like, listen, guy, I know my numbers, I know this, and you can't tell me
Exactly.
because I know it. And that you can go back and forth
That's
like a
right.
boxing match, right? You
Yes.
can roll with the
Yeah.
punches as it comes. You're up there in front of a few hundred people, and it's only you, and
Yeah,
that's
I
and
know.
that's scary for a lot of people, mind you.
And all the focus is on what you're saying.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I'm from Glace Bay. I can't say.
So how did
So,
you bounce back from getting your job, your idea stolen, and then being let go?
well, we did open, and as you know, it was very very well received. That's for sure. But I think the hard part was how they hurt the community. I could not imagine people being that mean. Just couldn't ever imagine it. But it's life, and you're going to run into those people. And there's one south of us. So, and but from there, Bill got called back to Air Canada, and his base was
Sorry,
in.
I'm gonna just it. What do you think, in your experience, of the importance of these businesses, whatever business they are, in a community, in the importance of them taking it upon themselves to foster the community, even not on a higher level, but with their money and their advertising, to make a community? Because it's always something that's, we're always pulling at one another. We kind of pull away from being community, but we need people to pull us in. So what do you think is the role of businesses rather than just making a profit?
I think it's 100% necessary to be part of the community, to foster um, uh, people working for you, to foster them to work within the community, to help where it's possible, to do whatever you can. And no one's sitting at the top in all of these beautiful positions where they get everything is got there by themselves.
Hmm. Absolutely.
It doesn't matter if it's a maintenance person, somebody working on a line somewhere. It doesn't matter. Everybody working gets that person what they need, and it's their 100% responsibility to do the same,
And
to help those persons.
you probably seen it because you've been in executive roles and dealing with people who are higher up. I heard this just the other day of companies that kind of check the boxes of, okay, are we being socially aware? Are we being community oriented? Are we doing that? Yep, we check it off, versus having
Right.
a heart to actually do something and make changes for their communities. Have you seen the difference on both sides and how they work or don't work very well?
I haven't, not necessarily, not in my time, because
Hmm.
for the last 25, 27 years, I've had my own business. So that's not what I was doing. But when I was working, like I said, for IMP, they are very conscious of their community. They are in the scientific community as well. They are always helping, and they're in 3 countries, and they're
Hmm.
doing it in 3 countries. So very much respectful. Now, Panarctic Oil is no longer in existence, but they were.
Yeah.
They had a very strong community service where, as an employee, you were dragged into it and saying, this is what we are doing.
Yeah.
And so you're put out into the community to do it, which when you're doing it, you're having fun. And
Yeah.
I think it's a great thing. I think it's a great way to make 2 things. Marketing, it's a great way to
Yeah.
make your name known in the community. It's a great way for those persons working for you to get to meet other people in the community. And it's a great way for persons working for a corporation to say, you know what, I enjoy doing this,
Yeah.
and it becomes a way of their life.
Yeah.
I
And
think it adds in so many directions.
even
It's not
outsiders
just
look in, say, hey, that's a good company.
exactly,
I might want to work for them. Or, my son
exactly.
or daughter wants to go. Well, then I think that's a good, reputable place to
That's
work.
exactly. It always comes back to you. It will always, everything you put out once comes back to you.
Yeah,
You may
it
not
does.
recognize it, but believe me, it comes back.
It does.
So yeah, I appreciate companies like that. And that hurt me about this one because they used our name to make it negative. But we moved to Ontario then, and Courtney our daughter was dancing. So she was called in a lot of activities, but we didn't have product here. And it was in the big city, which was not always the easiest thing to do.
Sorry,
to get
product in what sense? For
dance. She was dancing.
Okay,
Like
so
product was clothing, shoes,
okay,
all the things that she would need.
okay.
So because my husband was flying with the national airline, we could go to where it was. Edmonton had the biggest store. So people here knew that, and they would give me requests. Could I get a skate dress? Could I get gymnastic wear? So eventually I had more of that stuff because when I would bring it back, they would say, "Oh, my daughter quit dance or skate." Okay, that was a $300 dress. So Bill said, "Why don't you just open a store?" Okay. So I opened Elite Performance Wear, and I never made a cent in 20 years. Did not. But everybody who worked for me, they paid for their education, they paid for it, and we had fun. And they're still my dearest friends.
So you got into that, I guess. Why did Courtney get into dance, or did Courtney get into dance because of you? Was that ever a passion you had yourself? Did you ever?
No,
This
I love
ballet,
dance.
was it not? Or
Yes,
even
yes.
broader than that?
Well, she did all dance, but ballet was her forte. She ended up in a dance of a ballet school.
Mm-hmm.
She's very, very good. She was offered Britain to continue, but she didn't want. She said, "I want dance for me, not for the world." But no, I opened a store in order to have provisions because nobody in this town or any surrounding town had it. There was one store in Toronto when I opened. One.
So you
then
had mentioned
one in Ottawa. So yeah, I did very, very well for the first 3 years. And then Walmart decided they need the same product. And then Loblaws decided they need the same product. So their buying power was a whole lot better than mine.
So you ran that for 20, 25 years.
Yeah.
What was your biggest challenge in owning? I mean, you could speak of the airline industry experience, but of 25 years of being in the same spot, what was your biggest challenge of doing that, besides maybe not making any money?
Mostly it was employees. That was the hardest thing.
Keeping them, their attitudes, or?
No, I guess the thing was that at any one given time, I would have 9, 10 employees. And
huge.
So I depend. Well, they were overlapping, right?
Yeah.
I had 9 or 10 employees, but everybody can't work all the time because the thing was, I had a tendency or try to have one person maybe or two who are out of school, but hopefully the idea was to give employment to high school students looking for money to go to school. So that was the main objective. So all of these kids, they were mostly always either in gymnastics or dance or skating themselves, right? Mm-hmm. Which made it the whole lot less training I have to do because they certainly know what they need.
Yeah, exactly.
So they, in turn of doing school and having homework and their activities, these girls and boys were very, very high in their activity. So they were competing all over Canada and the United States. So I didn't always have them 100% of the time. So I needed enough people to do all.
They had other priorities, which you were more than accommodating for.
Oh, absolutely. That was the idea. That to me was the whole idea of being there, was, again, giving back. But the other parts of it, one of the things that I guess bothered me the most is people in the public think if you own a store, you're really rich, right? Mm-hmm. They have no idea of what it's like. you are, for example, I do believe strongly in giving back to the community. Before I opened, I had been to the gymnastic meets. The public school systems in this area had gymnastic meets. They wore their t-shirt and shorts. They did back walkovers and their shirt goes over the top of their head. And all of these kids, especially girls, will never be same again, never, because people are laughing at them. This will come up when they're in university. But remember the time that your whole body was exposed in front of all the people. If they aren't saying it, this kid is saying it in her head always.
Yeah.
So I said, I got to do something about this. So I went to every school and I said, if you're going to do gymnastics, I will do your suit for the cost of making the material itself, the cost of making it, not the material, the making of it. Because I couldn't at that time. I didn't know how to make it. So I couldn't draw a straight line if I tried. I learned real fast though. So I had 13 schools and they were doing gymnastics. And the deal was I would allow you to put one cut. So if your school color is burgundy, so if the main suit is black, put a burgundy cut in it of material. Or if put the rest burgundy and put a black cut in it, where you want it, wherever you want it.
Nothing too sophisticated, but just enough to differentiate you. Yes. Exactly.
And so if I had 2 or 3 schools saying, oh, I'd like this, I said, wait, this school started first and they have it. So try something else. Let's try this. Let's try that. So we did that. And then they became, the more they competed, the more suits they saw. And there was no charge to them. So their suit was like $13, $14. It was just whoever made it, their cost to me. And that's all they had to pay for. So some of these schools would have 27 kids in them. So the cost was getting more and more because I still had to buy material. I still had to
put the time in too.
Running around, I had to go to every school, measure every person, deliver them, make the changes when they grew, when they shouldn't have. And so it was interesting and lovable. And I went to every competition. I thought they were just amazing. And I thought, a lot of these kids are coming from homes that they don't have activities or money to go to private gymnastic clubs or anything. And they were so excited about it. So I just loved it. But then some of the teachers were also level 3 judges and coaches. So their suits were becoming really more and more elaborate. So then I had to start learning how to draw suits, how to make designs. And I said, I can't do this for this cost. I'm going broke, keeping the public school going in gymnastics.
That sounds like a common theme with people in public school. I'm going broke, dealing with, yes.
It's absolutely, because if you're going to pay it, then the school's not, right? So you can't force them to cough it up. So I also had 2 competitive schools in gymnastics, actual schools of gymnastics, and the national swim team and the national diving team, and who else? Oh yeah, and international wrestlers that I was doing all the costuming for them as well, which was really taxing and would have me up all night long drawing and changing designs and working at things. And and of course some of those were really rewarding when the swim team won in Vancouver and they're standing there getting a picture.
Your work.
So yeah, woo! So things like that. Or then a tag team wrestling match team were then hired by, I don't know wrestling at all. These guys were a bunch of actors. They drove me crazy.
Are you talking about the WWF or something?
That's it.
You made costumes for the WWF?
No, for
two tag
teams. 2 teams.
I need to get those names. There's lots of those, but this is 10, 20 years ago or not?
Yeah. Yeah, 20 years anyway.
You don't, I
Yeah.
need to get that name from you. If you can get that from your daughter or someone, that would be
Oh,
interesting
they
to
would
know.
never remember it. I can tell you a couple of their names. One is still out there. I think he's Venus. I think he's still out there playing. Um, oh gosh, I forgot the other
No,
guys,
I won't put,
but they
no,
were
you
funny.
you let me know. I'll post it in the YouTube thing. And my aunt made WWF. Uh,
They weren't in WWF. This is them going into. But I would get a call. They became WWF people.
that's
But
right.
I
Got to
would get a
start somewhere.
call in the middle of the night from Ireland, and they said, "Linda, you know this team." They were really funny because their boots had these shaggy things on them, and
Yeah.
I
Tassels.
kept saying, if they want to hurt you, they just need to grab a handful of shag and throw it. And I'm saying, you don't need this. So they were okay, same suit, but we want it in purple, we want it in white, and we need it in black, and we need it in. So I would have all these suits. Or this guy came up from the States and he said, are you the one who makes these suits? I want a suit in this color and this color and this color. And I didn't know that I don't want to, it's all acting, but I didn't.
Oh, it's
Because
all, we all know now, but back then we kind of thought it was pretty real. But we know it's just a big drama with very huge
and the
guys and
other
girls.
guy he's wrestling that night comes in behind him and they're arm in arm and laughing and joking. I go, okay, this isn't the way it's supposed to be, is it? I don't.
Oh no, they were friends. I mean,
Oh,
unless
best
there
friends,
was
yeah.
competition if they didn't get something, but no, WWF was pretty huge at a time.
Yeah, so so that was took up a lot of time. And Dear Bill, we were also doing, like, there's a ballet type of ballet that's called RAD, Royal Academy of Dancing, and for their exams you need different outfits. And because there's not a whole lot of people in Canada doing RAD dance anymore, where they could get the dress for it, they couldn't. So Bill would come home from work. It's a full circle skirt, and Bill would come home from work and make my skirts for me.
No, he didn't. So you mentioned time. How much time were you putting into this on a
Oh,
on a more regular basis? Not necessarily the beginning or the end, but what was your
on
average
regular basis?
regular time?
Okay, this was never my intent, I promise you, but I would go to work at 7, 8 in the morning. I'd get home 9, 10 at night. And I was always on call regardless, and I never left. But then I opened 4 stores. I had them within the province of Ontario in 4 different cities. So my car I bought brand new. Within 6 months, I had 130,000 kilometers on it. So yeah, I didn't know how to stop. I do now. I
Did
retired.
did you did you at that time think I'm doing it too much, or even in
Yes.
hindsight now, did you think, no, I had time? So do you regret
No.
working that much, or
Yes.
are you do?
Yeah. Well, this is what I've learned, Brian, through all of this. In my mid 70s now, this is what I've learned is that
You
it
look
is.
very good for your mid 70s. I would have said
Thank you.
60s or 59.
Oh, you're my nephew. You're supposed to say that. Thank
But
you.
it's true.
Now you lost my train of thought. Uh, um, yeah, no, I now absolutely know that
Regret of working so much, is it?
you are so fortunate if you have a job that you love so much. It's like never working a day in your life. You are so fortunate. The problem with that, because there's an up and down with every
Mm-hmm.
single thing, the problem with that is it's providing you your income, your social life, your confidence, your just well-being,
Mm-hmm.
and it's also taking from your family.
Yeah.
That job should be a job providing you with everything you need to be the best person with your family,
Mm-hmm.
and that gets lost.
Having the ability to separate oneself from it
Yeah.
at a appropriate
At a
time.
certain time, job stops. It's only there to provide you what you need to be the best family member that you can be.
It's hard though, isn't it?
Yes.
It's so
Yes.
hard. Like you think you have a job, and we've had jobs that we hate it. It's easy to cut that one off, except
That's right.
we're grumbling like, oh, I had to work today. But then you find one you love, and then you're bringing it home with you, like it's your partner.
Yeah, well, you don't. That's the problem, is everything you are goes into that, and there's nothing left for your
Yeah.
partner. There's nothing left for your children, because that's everything.
What was a joy that your experience or the 20, 25 years of working in? So you became a designer then.
Yep. So I
You,
couldn't draw a straight line.
but you did. You became a designer, You're on the drawers of WWF stars. Like,
It was funny. It was really funny.
but you
And
created
my suits, one of the suits from one of the competitive teams, this is with a 25% discount on the suit, was $265 each kid. It was all Swarovski crystals. It was their truck is still driving around town with my suit all over it.
So in that job or any other, what was you kind of touched on it. It's hard to take away and bring it home to the family, but what was the greatest joy you got out of and now you're retired. So when did you retire permanently to say I'm stepping away? Because did you not like a landing that goes down and up and down? Did you try to get away and then you went back to it?
Well, I put it all online and stayed with it when I retired. Closed the stores, put it all online, and I did it online for 3 years.
So then you stayed in front of the computer at home.
Yeah.
How was that easier? Because I mean, nowadays, through COVID 2020, a lot of people are working at home.
Yeah.
And they're saying, "Oh, this is good. I get to work from home." But was it easier?
Well, I like to talk, you know that. So on the computer, what I did do was change the concept of the business, and I was no longer dealing with the public. I was dealing with people in business. So I was selling directly to them, and they were selling to the public.
B2B,
so I became a wholesaler. And I had the stock. Years and years before, at a convention in the States, I met a gentleman who made his own Highland shoes. I never quite got out of the Highland and the Irish and the Scottish. That's the Cape Bretner in me. Yep. So I kind of stayed with that, and he gave Bill and I an opportunity to buy into his business, and I had the rights for Canada. And we changed the contract so that if he was ever going to sell, that we had first right of refusal. And so at that time, there were other aspects that we were engaging in when he decided to go out of business. So we weren't prepared to come up with the hundreds of thousands of dollars he wanted for all the stocks and the right to United States. And I let it go, and he came after my customers here in Canada. So that kind of hurt me. I said, okay, I'm done. I'm not fighting this anymore. I'm tired of the fighting. So that's when I took all the stock I did have, which was way up there anyway, and put it online and talked to those persons that I would be normally selling against, saying, I'm not going to sell to the public anymore, and I will sell directly to you. And so I did that until I had more surgeries. Apparently I had a stroke sometime. I don't know. And so I said, I can't do this anymore. And I then sold all my stock to them. And that was last year.
So would you say last year was your end of working, or that was just end of that?
No. Well, it was the end of my working, I thought. And then Bill retired, and now he's playing with starting another aviation business. Oh, I love aviation.
Are you hiring, honey? You can give me a good recommendation, honey.
I said, okay, don't talk to me about it. I don't want to know. And then he came out and he says,
What?
Linda, when you put together that airline, what license were you using? I don't like, and I started thinking about it, and he came back and he said, was it a 3? It was a 3 we were using. Yes, we could get that. It would be an unscheduled, and that's legal. You can
You're
do
right
that.
in it.
Okay.
You
And
just
I'm right
slipped
back in.
right back.
Yeah, right smack back. So I'm on the commute. Okay, do you want me to search this out? I know. I hate it. Between that and racing cars, because I love to race cars as well. I get really hooked. And that's what I'm saying about it, though, is that you can get so hooked on it, it almost becomes like a drug that, if somebody comes and said, oh, Linda, this is happening. Okay, you can figure it out good because I'm back at whatever. I think I can do that with aviation.
What would you say though? I mean, if you're getting in this with your husband, my uncle, working together, like is this, and you said you're retired and this time, is this a good thing to do? I mean, you have the two of you, you have an opportunity, you can, I mean, I'm married too, so I mean, I know maybe it's just
20
my house, but I know it can be tough.
Brian, we're together 44 years.
Yeah.
Bill has spent, I've only seen him maybe 20 years in that 44 years, right?
Yeah.
Because of his line of work. He retired February 1. God, thank you for that, because he retired in time
Before
to get
COVID, yeah.
And everybody else that retired 2 weeks later had to go on unemployment. He got his pension.
Really?
Oh, oh my gosh, he is so lucky. But he was home 24 hours a day, day in and day out, forever. And nobody felt sorry for me.
It's only been 6 months. It wasn't forever.
It is so. 24 hours has never been that long. I spent 2 weeks in a 24-hour one time. Like that's
Bill, I know there's two sides to a coin.
No, he will agree. He's apologized. He bought me a big ring because he was sorry.
Yes, we are wrong too, but it does take two to tangle. Tango.
So yeah, but he's learning. I know best. And he is so smart. He is really, really smart.
So to get into a business together that to me it seems, well, if you have some time together and you missed 22 years, then this might be a good time to. But then if 24 hours seems long,
and we are sort of different people, and those years add
differences.
And also different values and different, you're just different people than we were 44 years ago.
Yep.
And so, although we do, when it comes to work, we do have a tendency to work well together. In fact, we have worked in 5 companies together.
Well, yeah.
And in one time, I was working for a competitive of the company he was working with, and we're both executives in them. We had the quietest dinners you could ever imagine.
I'll see you in the boardroom.
Good. So what's new? Not much.
Can't tell you.
Well, that was it. And the thing is, if he even let a little thing slip, I used it against them in 2 seconds. Are you kidding? Because it's the company, right?
Yeah.
That's that I did, and he did the same thing.
Well, so let's pretend. Let's pretend.
What the thing was, if we were in the same company, even though we were in different positions, the positions, because we're all for the same company, they work together. Like if I was as manager of chartering, and he's chief pilot, then, and I'm saying, okay, I need to be able to get these kind of pilots with this kind of airplanes on their system, on their licenses. Get me this, and who do you think? And then he comes back and we're discussing the personalities, if they work for the type of job I needed them for. And so that could happen at 8, 9, 10, 11 at night, right? So we're not at work, but the persons that we're working for are getting mega hours.
Yeah.
You know, we just don't stop.
So let's pretend you're retired.
I'm retired.
And
I paint.
I mentioned to you, I want one of your paintings.
Oh yeah. No, I'm not sure you want one of my paintings.
No, I do. I mean, come on. Art is subjective.
I'm like your cousin Tegan. Tegan is she's talented. She has a fine arts degree. She's very talented, and she uses all kinds of medium. And I learned that just recently by mistake that I can use glue to make a painting. Like, you know, that glue gun, and you just draw lines with the glue gun and paint and you can turn that into something else. Oh, this is neat. So it's fun.
I mean, look at art. Art is very subjective.
It sure is.
People look at some things and put value on it, and I'm still trying to figure out what it is. So I would very much appreciate a painting by my aunt. That being said, what is your greatest joy of all the work that you've done, or even what you had as your own business? What is the joy that you got out of it? Obviously, minus the difficulty of bringing that joy home.
I think in aviation, definitely, mainly because I really enjoy it. I love airplanes. I love everything about it, the logistics of it, and being recognized for that. You know, even when I left IMP and I'm out west and I'm working for Pan Arctic Oils, I did crash an airplane at one point though. And I thought my husband, this guy who visits Pan Arctic because he's in business for himself and he knows my bosses, and he comes over and he said, Linda, I have a float plane in the lake east of here. He said, do you have your float license? I said, no, I don't. And he said, well, it's on wheels too. And I said, so what? And he said, can you fly it for me? And I said, yeah. And he said, you've got your license? I said, yes, but I just have to get my medical back. You know, that's not, my medical's fine. I just haven't had a medical. So I just go get tested and I'm fine. So he said, okay. So I asked him what type it was. And I said, so when did you want it back at Calgary Airport? I didn't want it at the airport. Where did you want it? Oh, you misunderstood. I don't want it to make anywhere. I said, okay, who you been talking to? And he said, I just came back from the Arctic. Do you know a guy who used to be with the ministry called Levesque? Yeah, George Levesque, yeah. And he said, oh, he told me the worst thing ever happened to the Atlantic province in aviation was you moving out west. And he said, and I was so glad you didn't get hurt in that accident. I said, he told you about that? He said, yeah. So
the cat was out of the bag.
That is nothing sacred anymore. Nothing.
Not at all.
So, and just imagine that was like 10 years later or 11 years later in other end of the country and the very high, far Arctic. And
he heard about it.
Oh my God. So it's moments like that when you realize, like, I'm an insignificant individual. Truly, I'm no different than every other person I know. I admire, for the most part, 99.9% of everybody I've ever met. I just admire all the skills they have and everything. And when somebody says that right out of the blue from way on the other side of the country, I go, oh gosh, that's not good.
You mentioned
my whole life is going to come back to haunt me sometime.
No, you mentioned respecting people. What advice would you give to, I say this, of people who are looking to get into work, I mean, you mentioned, wanting to do this, but your parents were not for it, but you went around and you eventually came through it in a non-confrontational sort of way. So people who are looking to work, people who, as you had some failing businesses or unfortunate opportunity things happen where you were not in work. So people who are in this, especially this time where people are out of job, people who are going to work and just don't want to go to work today, feeling a little bit maybe depressed, discouraged. What is some advice that you have? And you've given some, but I mean, just some general advice that could reach someone to say that work is important.
I don't know if I'm qualified to give advice, really, because I do believe that every job you do, I don't think everybody can assume what another job is like. Unless you're doing it, you don't know. So people assume that this job is this easy, or I could do that because. Then if you feel that way and you have some kind of jealousy about them doing the job and it's not that hard, I recommend that maybe you should get that job or struggle to get it, even if you have to do it for menial pay or whatever, to find out what it's really like. And don't judge somebody's job without knowing the job. And that's not following them through one day or shadowing and say, oh yeah, I got it. Because every job takes a certain personality, and the way this personality does something and that personality does it. There are some people who are just made to meet the public, they love meeting new people. And there's other people who, without them being nervous of meeting people and working in the background and getting everything ready for that person to present to the public, it wouldn't happen. That whole job wouldn't happen. That whole company wouldn't happen. So you don't judge. And if you think you might know something, then just go and see if they will let you work in it. And if you're that good, they'll keep you. They won't let you go. But I don't think that I get angry with people judging people's job, and or they'll say they're getting paid this much money for doing that job. If you think it's that good, then stop standing here complaining about it or being jealous of that. Go do it. Go do it. Nobody's stopping you from going after it.
There's lots of people like that. I totally get that. What about the little Linda who was a teenager who got her first babysitting job to gain confidence? And there's not only little, 14-year-old Lindas out there, but there's 40-year-old Lindas who don't have the confidence. What would you say to them?
I don't have an answer for that because I still don't have it. I think that's part of your personality.
And people may not have it. It could be just, mustering up enough to do the thing. But how did you muster up enough to do the thing each time?
I think for me is that watching something I would like to try and being really terrified of trying it because I'm going to look silly or be criticized or judged would make me angry enough that I would rather try it and deal with whatever anybody's going to decide and find out if I can handle that or if that's what I could do. I just would rather not be sorry that I didn't try something.
Yeah, you mentioned
and
that
I
earlier.
think I have been beaten up so much in my life by so many people who think they know me, who think that they know who I am, where I've been, how I've been there, what I've done. They have no knowledge whatsoever. But I can tell you that apparently from what I've heard, I had one hell of a good time. It was too bad that I wasn't there, but apparently some people thought
I would like to have asked this when you were talking about jobs, but what do people not, what would you tell people as you're referring to now is what do people not understand about the work you have done, which extrapolates over many other people doing different types of job, but what is it that a lot of people don't understand about the work you have done that you would like them to understand? Not specifically about the work you have done, but whether in the airline industry or merchandising, the work that you do, and how maybe, a mother who's buying clothes for a kid just doesn't understand and never will, or the person who's going on vacation will never understand this unless they're on this side of the coin. What is something that you would like people to understand about some of the jobs that you have done, and just to give them, because you were mentioning this a moment ago, of not judging, like, what would you like people to, one of those things, those little nitpicky things, like, oh, I wish they would
Honestly,
understand.
I think most of that is parts of personalities, where some people just like to be miserable and some people just like to find negatives about everybody. So I don't know if you can change that. I don't know if that just, please, I don't have, I really don't. I just suggest that if you really want to know something and have a desire for it, then it's up to you to try to get that job, even as a part-time job. One of the jobs I forgot to mention was when we first moved to Ontario, because Bill was based here. I was out of work again, and I got a job with the government doing interviews with people. I'd get a list of names and I would have to go and interview them. It was very difficult for me because the questions I was asking was about the way they were living, and it was none of my business. And they're right. It was none of my business, but I had to do this for the government. If they refused to answer, I was to call in the RCMP. It was that serious. But I was put in such uncomfortable situations, and where I couldn't relate things that were going against the law, things that were bad, and I couldn't relate them, that I couldn't do the job.
Yeah.
I absolutely had to get it out. Yet people criticized me for leaving a job.
Yeah, and there's lots of people in positions like that where they're doing something they just, whether it's morally or it's just so taxing on them, they shouldn't be in the job.
That's
And a lot
right.
of people are scared to get out because of the consequences.
There's your income, right? That's your income going. Now, the thing is, I wouldn't go and do this job unless Bill was home, so he could be home with the kids, so I could go, right? And so that meant that a lot of these times I'm going out at night to interview these people up till 7:30. I would never be out in these circumstances after 7:30. But in the winter, it's dark at 4:30. So I just, people have a right, if they can't do something. I don't know what the answer is, Brian. If this is your only source of income and you need to do something, not because I just don't like it, but it is taxing to you, it is causing stress, it's going to cause a breakdown, it's affecting the way you react with your people, then you should not be doing it. And I don't think there should be pressures on people through the government or a need. I don't know. I think there's got to be another way about it. I know a lot of companies have medical and mental health ways for you to achieve
Resources.
that.
Yeah.
But I'm also aware that a lot of people figure that's going to be a stigma on them afterwards.
Yeah. And
So
walking away, even if it means less money, is not a bad
That's
thing.
right. That's right. Because you're only this way. I don't know what's on the other side. I'm sure I'm going to find out soon enough, but I don't know. I suspect I'm still going to be haunting people.
Linda, if anyone would like to get in contact with you, are you on social media? Would you, if someone's like, hey,
Yes,
I want to
I am.
know, are you on an Instagram, a Twitter, or something? How could someone get
Facebook, only
Facebook?
Facebook.
Linda
Yeah.
Sidor. Yes, if they
Yes,
wanted to contact you.
sure.
In closing, Linda, because you have given me much time, and I do appreciate Bill for being patient with me and my dear wife. Why do you work? Or why in your
Why did
life?
I work?
Well, I don't think you're done.
I enjoy people, first and foremost. It's hard. It was very hard to retire. I've never been a depressed person in my life. I've been an angry person, but not a depressed person. And I found it very hard at first. to be home and not productive. I just felt I always had to be productive. So I would say I worked a heck of a lot more than I was ever compensated for. So I just like to work. I like to be busy. I like to be productive. And I think that's the reason I work.
Sorry, this leads me to something else then. What are you going to do during your retired time? Because you're not going to just sit there watching paint dry or look out the window. I don't believe
No,
that.
I do have a very large bottle of vodka.
That helps. That helps.
No, if I could, I probably would, but I can't. I keep swearing. My friends say, I want to see you drunk. No, you don't. No, you don't. I love that one glass of wine, or I do like a cold beer when it's very hot. But after that, I just can't. I just don't have a taste for. So I try, but it doesn't work.
Is there some things that you would like to do, or?
I would like to travel, but I don't know how realistic that is
nowadays. Yeah.
No, and I would like to really be good at painting. So I think I would like to do more classes. You know, I have tried, but I get angry and then I destroy.
As a side note, I think you would make a good mentor.
Oh dear, no. I don't. Thank you. I appreciate that kind of faith, but I
mean,
can't
you think of a 14, 24, 38, 54-year-old lady, a man as well, and just sitting down beside you, maybe with a glass of vodka or a cold beer, and getting some pointers on how to make it through this world.
I would hate to think that I would give what I think is advice, because I'm not anybody to give advice to anyone, that they made a decision that would hurt them, or I don't know if I could live with that.
Well, even now, like the 2 hours that we've been speaking, you're not, and you've directly said, I'm not giving advice, but your attitude to say that life will be okay because there's going to be a choice when the time comes is something that people need to hear.
There's always a tomorrow. If you let it, there's always a tomorrow. It's not going.
Don't sell yourself short.
No,
I think you have work to do. You're not done work. It may
so
not.
You find me a job.
Well, someone may find you on Facebook, Linda Sidor.
You find me a job.
Well, Linda, I appreciate this very much. So
I just love talking to you, because I get to know you at the same time, right? The time we haven't spent together.
We were together, what was it, last summer? 2 summers ago now.
Two summers, yeah. Or then I get a picture that you're on our deck and I'm not there. That was like, I came for a visit. What?
Wait, I was here. Where were you?
That's right.
Out on the Myra. So yes, I appreciate this, and I do hope that we talk again soon. And
I hope
my dear wife adores you, and stay safe. And
back at her. Your whole family stay safe.
And tell your husband, who's an earshot away, that I am coming.
He's right. Where are you?
I am coming.
Oh, can you see him? I don't know if you can get him.
Thunder's coming with me.
Wait, Bill.
I will be speaking with you soon, young man.
I hope so. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you kindly. It's been great.
Best of luck and love to you.
I very much enjoyed this. Thank you, Aunt Linda.
Thank you, sweetheart.
Thank you. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Why We Work with Brian V. Be sure to subscribe, follow, and share with others so they too can be encouraged in their work. I hope that you have yourself a productive yet joyful day in your work.